my name is Jeff Starr, and this is my channel Not Bad Films. I make videos about music, and today's video is about the 5 best guitar solos by Frank Zappa. A little while back I made a video about the 5 best albums by Frank Zappa, and that turned out to be pretty popular on this channel, so I thought now was a good time to do a follow-up. I'm stuck at home. My hair is really growing out. My beard is way overdue for a trim. Since we're locked inside, let's make some videos, right? I'm a huge Zappa nerd, right? Fan, whatever you want to say. That's probably pretty well documented in the last video. There's over 100 albums by Frank Zappa, so where do you jump in, right? Well, we have streaming music services that make it really easy to jump around and explore the catalog. Certainly a lot easier than when I was first getting into Zappa, which would have been in the late 90s. And I was shelling out $20 for each CD. And there's a lot of albums to get, so that was an expensive hobby. So you kids got it easy, right? So hopefully this list gets you a jumping in point to listen to more of Frank's music, and my goal is to just make it easy, right? A couple rules I had in making this video. Rule number 1, I can only pick one song off of an album. Frank Zappa made a lot of double albums, triple albums, entire box sets that are just nothing but guitar solos. So I said, well, I'm not gonna, I could just say, like, listen to this one album or pick 5 tracks off of one thing very easily. And I said, no, if I'm gonna pick something, I can't pick anything else off of that album. So that helped me narrow it down. Also made things really difficult. Another rule was no covers. They all to be original tunes. Zappa doesn't do a ton of covers, but I want to make sure that what you were listening was sort of like a definite, like, Zappa original. Songs had to be guitar driven, so whether that was rhythm guitar playing, a really strong guitar riff that's driving the song, and of course solos. So this sort of helped me to sort of think about, like, well, what are things that just sort of show great guitar playing? And last, I said I wasn't going to care about lyrics, because if you're not familiar with Frank Zappa's music, there's the occasional dirty word, right? Whatever, but I wanted to just focus on, try to separate words from music. I know it's all intertwined, it's very complicated. Ironically, of all the songs, only one has lyrics, and those lyrics are fine. Last of all, if you are a big Zappa fan like myself, and you think I've missed something, or I should have chosen a different song, or these 5 songs are the wrong 5 songs, you want a different 5 songs, leave a comment, tell me. That's super useful for everyone else who's watching this video. They can go down and they can say, well, what other songs should I check out? It was so hard to narrow this down, but it was a lot of fun. I got to listen to a lot of music. Music is the best. Can't remember who said that, though. His hair is really going. Let's not give it up, right? So let's really work this. How often do I get this chance to live? There we go. That's looking pretty good. Number 1, Black Napkins. I love this tune. This is off of Zappa's 22nd album called Zoot Allures. Frank Zappa's son, Dweezil Zappa. Team Dweezil, go! Dweezil Zappa, who's an amazing guitar player, perhaps you know that already. If you don't, just trust me on that. He has spoken about how, Frank considered Black Napkins to be one of 3 signature pieces. The others being Watermelon and Easter Hay and Zoot Allures. Because I was going to make this rule of only picking one song off of an album, that meant I could either choose Zoot Allures off of the album Zoot Allures, or I could choose Black Napkins off of the album Zoot Allures. The reason I went with Black Napkins is I just have such a strong affinity for this. When this song comes on, I go, oh, let me listen to this. Let me just stop for a second. Let me just listen to that guitar, its tone, the playing. It's just like, it just hits me so good. So that's why this is first on my list. It's one of his more, like, emotional guitar solos in terms of, like, the strained sort of wailing of that guitar. It's so singing. There's this very digestible melody, but has very strong key percussive sort of accents to it. It's very iconic in his repertoire, and it was played multiple tours, and just became very synonymous with, like, his sound, right? There's this ending that comes through I've heard this song hundreds of times, but it still sort of catches me a little off guard. It sort of breaks from what you've been listening to. It almost sounds like it's the introduction to like the next piece, but it's not. That's the ending to that song, which I think very much makes it sort of iconic to what you might get in a Frank Zappa piece. It's sort of like, I'm shifting gears, but I'm not, because it's also totally perfect at the same time. Hopefully it hits you the same way it hits me. Black Napkins. Number 2, Watermelon in Easter Hay. If you were to sort of speak to any Zappa fan, nerd, person like me who's geeking out on Frank Zappa records, you said, what's the song I gotta listen to? Best guitar song, best solo, just best thing ever. You might get this as an answer. I wouldn't be surprised by that. It comes off of a 1979 triple LP called Joe's Garage. It is the climactic track of that triple album, so there's a lot sort of building up to that moment. So here's what's interesting. The song's the only guitar solo recorded specifically for that album. It comes from a comment Zappa made that playing a solo with that band was like trying to grow watermelon in Easter hay, which I don't think is a super positive thing to say about that band. But nonetheless, maybe it is, because this is like an amazing solo. It's like the perhaps cream of the crop moment for most people in his repertoire of guitar playing. Dweezil Zappa, who I mentioned earlier, he considers this the best solo Frank ever played. Why do I like this? What's unique about this song? Well, similar to Black Napkins, this is a very simple, backing rhythmic changes. It's not full of crazy counterpoints and things bouncing all over. It's just a simple 2-chord harmony. I think that a lot of people who maybe have a very sort of light introduction to Frank Zappa would say, oh, there's a lot of just craziness, he's got a lot of chords thrown in and weird rhythms and everything's jumping all over, and he's just trying to make things complicated to make them complicated. He knows he can just keep it simple and let the guitar and the notes that he's picking say a lot without having to put it all over a bunch of stuff. And so I like that, because it's a counterpoint to sort of that derision that I think that he sort of sometimes gets from people that don't know his work. If Frank wanted to keep it simple and play something gorgeous, he could do that too. Watermelon in Easter Hay is a great example of that. So another thing just to quickly note, the first moment of it, you'll hear some spoken word from the central scrutinizer whispering into a megaphone. Just, ride through that for a second and then the song will start. You can also find a great live version of Watermelon on the album Guitar, which is a 1988 release, which is just guitar solos that Zappa sort of took out and said, like, this is a really good one. Check this one out too, right? Number 3, Ship Ahoy. This track appears on Frank's triple LP called Shut Up and Play Your Guitar, which is a box set of guitar solos that have been taken out of other songs or improvisations, jams, whatever. Sort of he's saying, hey, I think these are strong enough to stand on their own as compositions and pieces of music, and they do. I will say that. I think that's a very successful album. Very. I could have just said, if you like listening to Zappa's guitar playing, go listen to that album, Shut Up and Play Your Guitar, and come back to me later. But I won't do that. I'm going to try to pick stuff from some other places. So Ship Ahoy. A couple things why this is great. Okay, so this is originally the coda to the previously mentioned Zoodalures. So Zoodalures was being played live, and this existed in that performance. Frank said, I'm going to cut that out. I think that's strong enough to stand on its own, and it does. And I think that's one of the great things about, he would often describe guitar solos as making air sculptures. I won't try to explain that. I'll leave that to some other time. But I think that it shows that composition, the solo within the larger composition, is something that he was able to do very successfully, because you can listen to this track on its own, never knowing that it was part of something else. And in some ways, it's maybe even better not knowing that. Maybe I ruined it for you, right? Ship Ahoy is also really great, and part of the reason that I love this, it's very heavily doused in effect, an Oberheim VCF. It's hard to explain. You just have to listen to it. Just listen to it. That's the best way, right? It's hard to find those units, but there are some pedals that recreate it if you really want that sound. This Line 6 FM4 has this effect. There is a Robotalk pedal which does this. It's a really hard effect. Like I'm a Zappa nerd, right? I own this because I want to have that sound. It's really hard to make it musical and not just make it a bunch of like things, right? So one of the things that why I think this is such a good example of his guitar playing beyond just sort of like the great shredding that's going on, and his play with the rhythm section, which is something just overall. Listen to sort of how Zappa works with the rhythm sections. He's playing the effect probably almost as much as he's playing the guitar. You couldn't almost take that effect off and it just wouldn't be the same. It's almost like the definitive example of that effect is Ship Ahoy. So listen to it. It's so killer. Like put on some headphones or get a nice stereo spread with your speakers or something and just like, oh, love it. So, okay. Number 4, The Ocean is the Ultimate Solution. This is the longest track. This is running 13 minutes, a little bit over 13 minutes, a handful of seconds. And I had to include this because of its incredible rhythm guitar playing. I think that people forget what a great rhythm guitarist Zappa is. Check out the live Roxy DVD or like whatever, however you watch that stuff now. Who has a DVD player anymore? I don't even know. But that is, you'll see, he's the only guitarist and he's like doing great rhythm playing throughout that. I'm getting off track. So The Ocean is the Ultimate Solution. This is just great. He's got this awesome, super, like, just super tight, fast, rhythmically interesting rhythm guitar playing in this sort of trio jam. And then overdubbed on top of that is a really ripping electric guitar solo. The construction of this song is also really unique and a good example of sort of the studio magic that Frank would like to work. So this started out as sort of, I believe it was a 45-minute jam between Zappa on rhythm guitar, Terry Bozzio on drums, and a bassist whose name I'm going to have to look over here, Dave Parlato. So Zappa took that 45 minutes and edited it down into like the 13-minute sort of form that the song is now. And was going to start overlaying his electric guitar. Maybe he actually even started that process. So drummer Terry Bozzio, he has a bassist, Patrick O'Hearn, who's sort of just coming to town. He's playing some gigs. He's a friend of Bozzio's. He's staying at Bozzio's house. And, you know, they're like, oh, let's go down to the studio where Frank's working. You know, you can listen to what we've been doing and come, maybe say hi, whatever. They come down. O'Hearn's got his acoustic bass in the car because he's already played some, I think he's already gigged that day, played a couple sets or something. And they're like, oh, well, let's not leave the bass in the car. Let's bring it in. We don't want it to get stolen. So they bring in the acoustic bass, and Zappa sees the acoustic bass and says, hey, do you play acoustic bass? And Patrick O'Hearn says, yes. And Zappa says, all right, let's mic this thing up. They overdub the acoustic bass to replace the original bass player. Patrick O'Hearn's bass playing is just like ripping. It's so hot, right? And then sort of later in the track, Zappa's like, oh, you know, maybe we should transition now to like an electric bass. Do you play electric bass? And he does. It's sort of not his main instrument, but he has one. He pulls it out. And then it's just like shredding, right? Sorry, this would be like great bass solos by Patrick O'Hearn. I know I'm getting off topic, but trust me. This basically becomes an on-the-spot audition for Patrick O'Hearn, who then later ends up getting hired and joining Zappa's band and doing, you know, all these tours with him. Now, when you listen to this track, it sounds like just a really tight trio. Meanwhile, there's all this overdubbing between, and all this editing to bring this 45 minutes way down to 13. There's the bass part's been replaced. There's the overdubbed electric guitar solo, which, if anything, maybe sort of stands out just because it's you know, electric, and it's maybe doesn't sit like in that same acoustical space. It's sort of definitely sitting on top, but it doesn't matter. And just, I think that's sort of like a fun little like thing about that track just to sort of think about, right? It's just a fun story behind this song, this 13-minute long epic, fiery rhythm guitar playing, and then this super hot solo on top of it, this great bass playing. Terry Bozzio on drums is like always fantastic. I'm excited. Hopefully my enthusiasm transfers over. This good stuff. Okay, you kids out there, go listen to this music. Number 5, Inca Roads. This is probably one of Frank's most popular songs overall. It comes from an album called One Size Fits All. Let's talk about the solo, okay? At about the 2-minute point in this song, Frank goes into his solo. And it's actually, it was recorded in Helsinki, Finland. It was sort of cut out of that recording, that live recording there, and stuck in to the rest of the track. Sort of as I was saying before, Frank really liked doing stuff like that. The word sublime is used a lot to refer to this solo when you sort of read reviews about it, or people talk about it, or on forums, whatever. It's very apropos. So things about it. It's very lyrical, right? In a sense that there's sort of like almost like a speaking dynamics. It's sort of like it's like someone's talking to you, but they're telling you a really rapturous story, something that you're really like sucked into, right? Is rapturous the right word? I don't even know. It's very delicate. There's these little flourishes, things that sort of punctuate, but there's no sort of like playing fast just to play fast or show off. There's hints of that, but it's like very specifically chosen and well worded. I don't know how this sort of, I keep using this sort of things about speech, but there's something about it. And one of the things that for me I really like about this song is there's a lot of like dynamics and also just like the picking attack. So just like it sort of turns into that like air sculpture, the speakers moving air through the audience or whatever. Although it starts off in a more sort of like subtle, laid back, sort of lyrical sort of way, as it's going, it crescendos for sure, and sort of builds, and the whole thing sort of takes off. I almost said like a rocket ship, which maybe is intentional, because the song is about spaceships. You know, did they come and visit the Incas, and it's sort of a whole story there. But anyway, just listen to the song. Just listen to the song. Trust me on this. Also, there's some tapping at the end of the solo. It sounds sort of more like instead of finger tapping, more like pick on the fretboard type tapping, but ahead of the curve. Another thing about this song that makes it really fun is that George Duke, who's a jazz legend, does a really sort of wild solo in 7/16 and after Frank. So there's Frank plays and then George takes a solo, and that's just like a sort of fun bonus. It's just a great song. It's about 8 minutes long overall. It's like a classic in Frank's repertoire. It became a standard piece performed live. Come for the solo, stay for the song, get sucked into the whole album overall, and hopefully get sucked into all of these albums overall. One of the things I wanted when I was picking these is this song so strong that you should also check out the whole album. Is the whole album around it strong enough? I think that's definitely the case with all these, and not just being biased because I'm sort of like all that stuff. I think that's very true of all the albums that these songs are featured on. So if you like this, let me know, and maybe I'll make another one of these. Talk about some more stuff. Maybe it's not just solos. Maybe it's hard rockin' songs, or it's songs that are like just so wild it's like an assault of just like sounds coming at you. What is this? Classical stuff in the Zappa repertoire. There's so many different things to dive into. So if you like this video and you like the other one I made before, please let me know. I'm happy to make more. Please check out other stuff on my channel. And if you like this video and what I'm doing here, and you want to support me on Patreon, I'm thrilled and super, super grateful. And I'm super appreciative to everyone who's already done so. Thank you so much. My patrons are so kind and generous. Thank you. I know that when I'm listening to Frank's music, certainly when I'm talking about it, it gets me really excited, it gets me inspired, right? I want to go pick up a guitar and go practice and go make some music, whatever. So go listen to Frank, get inspired, grab your instrument, If you don't have an instrument, learn an instrument. And happy practicing. Talk to you later. Bye.